Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope everyone is doing great and everyone is safe. So today I'll discuss about the overcoming communication barriers in multicultural settings. But before I begin, if this is your first time to my channel, please hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification bell for more videos and updates on purposive communication, contemporary world, and grammar subject. Thank you. Alright, so in the previous video, I have discussed about communication and globalization, the impacts and different signs of globalization, the importance of knowing the different characteristics of culture, and the difference between the world English and the world Englishes, and of course, the significance of knowing and understanding intercultural communication. Now, I'll be discussing about the different ways in overcoming communication barriers in multicultural settings. So let's have the definition of multicultural. According to U Dictionary, multicultural means incorporating ideas, beliefs, or people from many different countries and cultural backgrounds. When people of different cultures come together and share different customs and traditions, this can be an example of multicultural celebration. And before we continue discussing the overcoming the barriers in multicultural setting, let us have a short recap of the term used in the previous video or topic. So let's have culture. It is all socially transmitted behavior, arts, architectures, languages, signs, symbols, ideas, beliefs, norms, traditions, rituals, and etc., which is learned and shared in a particular social group of the same nationality, ethnicity, religion, and etc. Now, globalization is a process of bringing people together and making them interact and exchange ideas across traditional borders. And intercultural communication, it takes place when people from two different cultural groups interact with the purpose to exchange ideas and cultural norms in the spirit of understanding and mutual respect. And now, with globalization and migration, the 21st century workplace is becoming a microcosm of a world community that people from different countries with various ethnicities and cultural background meet. So, it is mentioned the microcosm of a world community. So, what does microcosm mean? It means a small society or place or activity which has a typical features of a much larger one but seems like a small version of it. So you see that our world is absolutely huge, but it is becoming small because of easy access to communication or to technology. And we can easily interact internationally no matter what race or ethnicities they belong. So, to ensure maximum productivity in the workplace, there must be a smooth flow in communication among multicultural groups. Now, for us to be able to have this fluidity in the process of communication, one has to know the language and the culture of the person you are talking with. Okay, so let's have this. There are several challenges that people encounter, especially if they are just new in a workplace, most specifically if they are in the other country. So a lot of people will judge you or misinterpret you because you act and you talk differently. Now, we will begin studying the effective communication in a multicultural environment. Now, let us talk the different potential barriers in effective communication. So the first one is language. It says here that with over 2 billion speakers globally, English has become the lingua franca, a language that is used among people who speak various languages. Now, this has been discussed already in my previous video, but let me explain it again. So the circle that you can see here is a representation of Bracacru's schematic representation of the world Englishes. So when we say world Englishes, that is what we call variety of English. Okay, he describes that there are three circles of the language. The first one is the inner circle. So when we say inner circle, these are the countries whose first language is English, like the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. And then when we say outer circle, this is the second language of these different countries like Philippines, Singapore, India, and etc. And they consider English as the second language or ESL. And then when we say expanding circle, they consider English as the foreign language or EFL. So it means that English has no official use in these countries like China, Russia, Japan, and Vietnam. But of course, these countries are starting to use the English language as their second language. Now it says here that language is embedded in culture. So it is culture and not the language code itself that dictates what appropriate to say and do in every communication situation. So according to Day Translations in 2018, language and cultures are intertwined. A particular language usually points out to a specific group of people. So when you interact with another language, that means to say that you are also interacting with a culture that speaks the language. You cannot understand one's culture without accessing its language directly. So, when you learn a new language, it does not only involve learning its alphabet, the word arrangement, and the grammatical rules, but also learning about the specific society's customs and behavior. Meaning, when learning or teaching a language, it is necessary that the culture where the language belongs be referenced because language is very much ingrained in the culture. So here is an example. North Americans value being direct in their speech, so in business meetings, they would rather not engage in a small talk, but the Arabs, small talk is necessary as it is their way of finding common ground with their potential business partners. So, meaning, it is not only words, it is not only the message that you are going to send to the one you are talking with or talking to. It is necessary that you also know their culture and how they communicate. And then it says here that a lack of awareness or sensitivity to this difference in communication style could be a potential source of conflict in business meetings involving speakers of different cultures. Now, how are we going to overcome the language and semantic barriers? But before that, what is semantic? Semantic is the meaning of the word, phrase, sentence, or text. Okay, so let's say, for example, we have white blouse and white lies. Now, we have used the word white in the first and the second example. But the other white there does not mean you or color. It is an example of a figurative language, while the other one literally means that the color of the blouse is white. Now, we should have awareness on intercultural communication to understand interlocutors who come from different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. So, what do we mean by interlocutors? That means a person who takes part in the dialogue or conversation, meaning to say the person you are talking to. So you have to be knowledgeable on how to send and interpret both verbal and nonverbal messages, especially those that differ in various cultures. So, another potential barriers to effective communication are the signs, symbols, and gestures because it also differs from culture to culture. Now, what are the different examples? Number one is the sign thumbs up is taken as a sign of approval and wishing luck in most of the cultures, but it is taken as an insult in Bangladesh. So another is thumb is up symbolizes everything is great in American culture. But you know what? In Greece, it's like giving a middle finger in Greek culture. Okay, so that is according to smarttravel.com. So another, the V hand gesture with palm face outside or inside means victory and peace in the United States. But the back of the hand facing someone showing the sign is taken as insulting in many cultures. So another example, if you are left-handed and you use it for eating in, let's say for example, you are in the Middle East, India, Sri Lanka, and Africa, definitely they won't like it because they consider left hand as unclean because it is associated with cleaning yourself after using the bathroom. So the culture truly sets some meaning of signs which might not be the same in other culture, and this is what we have to understand. So the third potential barrier is stereotype and prejudice. So when we say prejudice, we are talking about emotional bias. And then for stereotype, it's cognitive bias. And then, of course, when we do both, that is what we call discrimination, or that is a form of discrimination. Now, people have many similarities and differences, and people sometimes clash because of these differences. And this is very much difficult to reconcile, which leads sometimes to prejudice people. So, prejudice is a negative emotion towards an individual based on particular social group. It can include gender, ethnicity, nationality, social class, religion, race, sexual orientation, and even profession. So I have an example for this prejudice. So way back 2010, I worked in a call center, and one of the callers asked me to book him a hotel since I was working in a hotel reservation account. Then I asked him his information, and of course, the last thing that I asked is the credit card number details. But before he provided me the information, he asked me my nationality. Then I told him that I am a Filipino. And then you know what he did? He told me that he is not going to give his credit card details because he doesn't like Filipino people because Filipinos are thieves. That was according to him. So that is an example of a prejudice and of course an emotional bias. And then when we say stereotype, I told you it's a cognitive bias that overgeneralize individuals. So let's say for example, we have Asian students are stereotyped to be good at math. So this is a positive stereotype, and that means that all Asians are good in math or are good at math. And then the second one, people following a certain religion are related to being violent or terrorists. So this example is an example of a negative stereotyping because let's say you see these people as a member of this religious group or of this religion, and then you are going to think that he or she is also a terrorist or a violent person. So that is stereotyping. And of course, when we do that, that is what we call discriminating people. And the fourth one is ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism, according to Businessopedia, is the process of dividing culture as us and them. It is the tendency to judge the culture of other people with disfavor and to consider one's own as being superior to the other. So, according to lumenlearning.com, it is a term used to describe the opinion that one's own way of life is natural or correct. Some would call it as cultural ignorance. It is like one sees that his or her own culture is the one that is correct and the one that should be imitated. And once you see cases like you see it different to your own way of living, you will consider it as wrong and you will try to convert them. So, of course, these may result to conflict because other people will not agree will not agree and will stick to his or her way of living. Now, so as you can see in the picture, ethnocentric means thinking your own culture is better than the other culture. So look at the example. Asian people use chopsticks with every meal and may find those who eat using forks, spoons, and etc. foolish for not using chopsticks, although they accept the fact that other cultures use different utensils. So the next one is cultural relativism. This is the opposite of ethnocentrism. So it is the ability to understand a culture on its own terms and not to make judgments using the standards of one's own culture. So the goal of this is to promote understanding of cultural practices that are not typically part of one's own culture. So, using the perspective of cultural relativism leads to the view that no one culture is superior than the other culture when compared to the systems of morality, law, politics, and etc. So, cultural relativism is a principle that an individual person's belief and activities should be understood by others in terms of that individual's own culture. So, meaning to say, it's like you are trying to learn, to understand, and to adapt everything to have this what we call understanding. So, how are we going to overcome stereotype and ethnocentrism? Number one, observe the basics and maintaining good interpersonal relationships. Verbal and nonverbal messages should be delivered in a way that they do not offend the sensibilities of others. So another is we have to understand the multicultural self because different people have different views and ideals, perspectives, values, traditions, and beliefs to become more globally competitive and culturally sensitive. So just like what's in the picture, according to John 7:24, do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. So it's the same with never judge a person by his or her skin color, by how he or she talks and how he or she acts. So all we need to do is to understand and to adapt. So the fifth one is cultural difference. Cultural taboos are practices prescribed by a particular society as being improper or acceptable in their culture. So when we say taboo, it's a social or religious custom prohibiting or forbidding association with a particular person, place, or thing. So let's have the given examples. When Westerners take their soup, slurping is against table etiquette, but among the Japanese people, it is a must do if you want to express your appreciation for the meal served to you. Another example, giving flowers to a male host may be an acceptable gesture of gratitude in many cultures, but in France, a male guest should not give roses to his hostess as it suggests romantic overtures. So another is taboo in Saudi Arabia. Uh, the taboo in Saudi Arabia are marital relations, rape, and domestic violence. So we also have these following examples. Don't point at anyone or show the soles of your shoes. And then another, do not wear tight clothing. Don't show affection to opposite sex in public. And do not discuss sex in public. So those four that I have mentioned to you are taboos in Saudi Arabia. And how are we going to overcome cultural barriers? So we have to be aware of cultural differences in beliefs, attitude, and practices that dictate appropriateness in a multicultural setting. So this one is self-explanatory. So another is the personal space, and this is very important for you to know. So the amount of space between speakers defines their relationships in terms of gender, age, social status. But culture will also have an effect on how a person defines a personal space. So example, in contact cultures such as South America, Middle East, and Southern Europe, people tend to stand close to each other and touch frequently as they converse. But in non contact cultures such as Japan, US, and United Kingdom, people tend to maintain more space and often less touch while conversing. So, to sum up everything, to make cultural communication effective, the causes or barriers of communication must be eliminated as much as possible. So here are the following guidelines. Number one, be aware of cultural differences that dictate appropriateness in multicultural settings. Number two, have knowledge on intercultural communication to understand the different linguistic and cultural backgrounds. Number three, understand the culture of others. Number four, understand cultural taboos. And then number five, observe the basics in maintaining good interpersonal relationships. So another is know yourself and your culture for you to get used to how others may interpret cultural values in a different way. Next is know your audience and be open to new ideas, and you have to appreciate cultural differences. The next one is avoid using deep words. Keep it simple and polite so that others may easily understand you. And the last one is be a learner. Keep in mind that you always have something new to learn so that you will be open to new ideas and appreciate cultures other than yours. So these are taken from Businesspedia. And then culture differences should not separate us from each other, but rather cultural diversity brings a collective strength that can benefit all of humanity. That is by Robert Allen, author. So once again, this is Ma'am T. Thank you so much and God bless you. Please do not forget to like and subscribe this channel.